Hey, welcome back to the Cage Rage podcast. This is your host, Chadillac, with host and fight analyst, Miguel Iturrate. Miguel, it's good to have you back. We are talking MMA, and we are specifically talking about what's going on with McGregor and Khabib and Ferguson and Diaz and all the crazy stuff that's going on right now. And there's a million conspiracy theorists floating around about this and that, and all the conspiracy theories point towards, I don't know, a dozen different things happening. But I think the first thing we need to do is we need to be realistic about what the Boxing Commission can and cannot do, what they will and won't do. And there's no one better to talk about that than our own Harold Letterman, Miguel Iturrate. Miguel, what is going to happen? What can the Boxing Commission, what should they do? What can they do? What is the common idea of what the Boxing Commission will do? First, to McGregor.
Oh, McGregor, he's at no risk with the Boxing Commission. He may get a suspension, a medical suspension for getting his ass kicked. If he hasn't already gotten one, 60 days or 90 days or whatever it is. Nothing that's going to jeopardize his career, but he's at no risk because there was really no activity from him that, came from him. Nurmagomedov is in trouble with the commission, and I think the commission is now. You have to firmly understand this is an American institution, and they are just that, an institution. It's a bureaucracy. So in this situation, they have to act. At the end of the day, they can't go to the lieutenant governor, who's their boss, or the governor of the state, as the head of the commission, and say, give us your year review. It's like, well, that big fight then, well, what happened there? How many people were suspended? Well, we didn't suspend anybody. No, they want to go in there and say, well, we had suspensions and this guy is banned from fighting in Vegas. They're going to act. They're going to do something. Nurmagomedov left himself open to that because here's a situation where this is where the commission gets to say, hey, look at these muscles, because the UFC really can't just go to them and say, hey, we're going to make a lot of money if we play this way, and McGregor and Nurmagomedov next, and, this other thing. They got to let them act like that and then kind of react, I think. You know what I mean? Okay. Maybe there's some influence there.
Okay, but the question is, what can they do? What are they supposed to do? Okay, so you're saying that McGregor's he is under no duress of any kind of punishment whatsoever, other than possibly a medical suspension. But with Khabib, what can they do? What should they do with Khabib for his actions? Jumping the fence, attacking a guy, causing a riot, etc. Just with Khabib, not with any of his people, simply with Khabib. What is going to happen with him as a fighter, as a champion in the UFC?
Yeah, no, I think Khabib's going to be suspended for a year. I think that the commission
a year.
They could do 6 months, right? Is 6 months a slap in the wrist to an athlete that fights every 6 months? So I don't know. You know what I mean? So I think they're going to want to make a statement here that they did act. I think they're going to want to look like they did something. Okay, so that's really important, I think, because I think from there, how do you spin it? Because I think Khabib at the end of the day did leap over the cage, and instead of saying, fuck you or doing any of this, he leapt into the air and started a physical attack, and there is a line there that gets crossed, At the end, the truth of the matter is you got a boxing commission that's supposed to be controlling the situation there, and you got an athlete in his prime who's jumping over a cage going after another athlete, who's competing and is also in his prime, maybe a lesser level, but you got two guys like that going there, and I see a lot of old men in red jackets with the Boxing Commission.
Yeah.
I don't know that too many of them are ready to step in and help. And I don't know that that's their job either, but when they're trying to control the situation, you got a lot of old men sitting there and not in control of the situation. Boxing commissions hate that. They hate that. So if they were made to look foolish, they're going to need to now step in and act. So I think Nurmagomedov can't avoid a suspension. I think the UFC could spin it, like I mentioned in a previous segment, which is they also strip him, promise him the return fight, and force McGregor to fight Ferguson for next. because Khabib will have to recognize that in putting McGregor in with Ferguson, that they're not babying the guy, and
Okay,
Khabib gets his money.
okay. If they force Ferguson and McGregor to fight, is that for a title?
Yeah, I think that's the thing is, it would be for Nurmagomedov's strip title. If they don't want to strip him, then it could be for an interim title. That's probably what the UFC will do, and not if they could. But I would strip Nurmagomedov. It doesn't matter. He's undefeated, and it's just a symbol to promote the fight. That's how I would approach Nurmagomedov.
And to
Look,
be clear,
the commission suspended.
to be clear for the audience, go through one more time what the rule is about. Okay, first of all, to reprocess what happened, Dana White said to Khabib, I need to get you out of here because people are going to start throwing shit. I'm not putting this belt on your waist right now because if I do, they're going to be throwing shit and God only knows what's going to happen. Let's get you out of here before any more chaos ensues and there's a riot and we lose control of this worse than we already have. Now that's on camera, on pay-per-view of him saying that. And then afterwards they interviewed him and he said, look, I was trying to get him out of there before anything worse happened. And it started happening on the way out of the tunnel. They were bombing him with beers and stuff like that. So having said that, you mentioned, tell us about the technicalities on that.
Well, the technicality, I mean, what you have there is you have the promoter stepping in and removing the fighters from the ring for safety's sake. So the deal is what could the commission do there? Now, keep in mind, everybody around the cage has a license from the commission to be there. The announcers, the cornermen, anybody who's around there, the commission knows who you are if you're in the ring area. And you may have a person assigned to watch you. Maybe he watches a couple of people, but each corner, each person, that's where all the guys in the red jackets are there. And they become pervasive and they're following these guys around, right? So what you have there is the promoter saying, okay, the commission's probably going to be okay with what he did. And it's also not like a boxing belt where you also have other commissions and other boxing entities that make rules up and stuff. The UFC can pretty much do what they want. In boxing, if you've left the ring before the official announcement is made of a match, you can lose the fight and you can be stripped of a title. It's never really been a huge issue in boxing in terms of most guys stay there. And, there's whatever has happened has happened. It's not been, but that's the rule. So for leaving the ring, Nurmagomedov could be stripped of a boxing title. Now, you can't really apply the rule if it doesn't exist in the UFC. It doesn't look, especially with the promoter, I don't think with the promoter pulling him out that the promoter would say that. I'm saying the commission's going to be forced to act on Nurmagomedov and that he's going to need a suspension. The UFC may be in there looking to market this. Like I said, I'm pushing for Ferguson to fight McGregor. If McGregor can survive that, then let him continue making $100 million a fight. But he's got to be tested every time at this point because there are no soft fights. And not that Nate Diaz is a soft fight, but there is a little bit of cushioning and babying that comes with a third Nate Diaz fight that could be perceived, especially from Nurmagomedov. Nurmagomedov is morally right here. He's the guy who said, look, I sat for 3 months while that guy did everything to me. My religion, my family, my father, I took everything I had, and at the end, it was just a fucking adrenaline dump, and I had to go shit on somebody. You know what I mean? It's like, he's morally right. And therefore, you can almost excuse him. Could the boxing commission excuse him? They could, but I don't think they're wired that way. I think they're wired to say, oh, no, we got to make an example of this. They're old men in suits,
Well, we certainly know from our past experience that dealing with commissions, it's taxing and it comes with a heavy toll. The frustration levels are exorbitant, and that there are times when it's sort of like dealing with the court system. It's almost exactly like that. When or for those people who don't know and they haven't been in that situation, dealing with a boxing commission or a fight commission is very much like going to the BMV. And you walk up and you've got all your paperwork in line, and then some lady goes, I'm on break. And you have to go stand in line again. And then you get up there and the next lady goes, I'm on break too. And you finally get up there and things are going well and you think you're going to get it, and you don't have that one piece of paper that you didn't know you were supposed to have, and they just changed the rules that you have to have it and you didn't know it. And I'm speaking because there's a new rule in our state in particular, and I think it's nationwide now, where you have to have a different item on your license to be able to fly now. And so anybody who's listening to this knows what I'm talking about. And if you don't, when you go to the BMV, you're going to find out. You're going to love it. It's fun. So anything else before we go? I think we should probably talk real quickly. Spend 5 minutes and tell me about the pathway. So we've got Ferguson, who, in my opinion, I think he's the dark horse. I think he's the real threat out there. I think he's the guy that can beat Khabib. I think he's the guy who makes Diaz look like a fool. I think he's the guy who can... I think he makes McGregor look silly too, personally. Although I think there's a different factor there. And I don't know. I think Ferguson is that guy. And I think he could be the champion really easily. I could be totally wrong about that, though. But I'm not the fight analyst here. So tell me about Khabib, Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor, and Tony Ferguson. What happens there? Because that's what we're talking about, right? That's got to be the pathway. Or is there a third person?
No, like I said, here's if it was a sport in like a logical path here that didn't involve making money, and I know that that's kind of a taboo thing to say here, but you kind of try to make the decisions based on sport, and then from there the money comes, and I think there's a way to keep it interesting as well. You know what I mean? So, like I cleared up, what you said about Ferguson, bottom line is Ferguson is the #1 contender. And the UFC's track record of keeping #1 contenders waiting to make big money fights and stuff is there. Go look at it. It's there. So, if we're moving past that, you got to respect Ferguson in the #1 spot that he's in. So, Ferguson should be either in the next title shot with Nurmagomedov. McGregor asked for a rematch, but McGregor can ask for a lot of things. It's time McGregor maybe doesn't get everything he asks for. And at this point, a rematch with Nurmagomedov, bottom line is, in the ring, he didn't really earn it, right? But he asked for it, and he's the cash cow. So Nurmagomedov will probably have to say, yeah, I'll fight him again for a few $1 million. No problem. You know what I mean? Or I'll fight Ferguson for a third of the money or whatever that might be. A much tougher fight and blah, blah, blah. So from Nurmagomedov, you'll have to take the McGregor fight. McGregor is pushing for it, but what does Ferguson do? Then the UFC screwed #1 contender. So Nurmagomedov gets suspended by the commission. You can take and you can make an interim champion and you fight McGregor and Ferguson. That is the risk of running the McGregor train off the tracks, because it will be yet another loss to yet another guy, and they've got the intrigue and stuff. So with Nurmagomedov for the rematch, they're extending that. Maybe he recovers, but another loss to a Ferguson guy just proves that there is an elite level above McGregor no matter what he says. You know what I mean? And then there's several fighters that have taken him down already. So I think that's the fight that everybody is going to avoid. That's the fight that should be done. That's the fight that should be done. So give him the interim title, give him the Nurmagomedov strip title. Nurmagomedov comes back to fight the winner, and that becomes a big money fight. And almost all of that means that what you wind up with is Khabib and Ferguson facing each other in a fight that, the UFC's poo-pooed out, it's fallen apart 3 times. Now it's a bigger fight than ever. That fight, in terms of McGregor's kind of handed the flag to that fight by having lost to Ferguson. So with Ferguson and Nurmagomedov both being the guys that beat McGregor, you kind of get some of the push from him, and you've made a huge fight outside of McGregor. The UFC kind of needs something besides the McGregor card to make a big fight too. So I think that's the sportive, right thing to do path by everybody. Ferguson gets his fight. Another guy who likes to talk his way into fights is Diaz. I'm going to ask Diaz to win a few fights. I'll put him in as often as he wants. I don't know if at this point in his career, he'd like 3 or 4 fights in a year, but I'm willing to do that with him. Let him get back on path. We can have a fight. I know he's not on the roster anymore, but Melvin Guillard types. The first. Get him back on the path and put him in there. But I'd ask him to win some. Talk on the internet's all good, but he does need to win a couple of fights, and I work with him on that. It's not going to be Nurmagomedov for the payday or the championship the next fight for Diaz. Sorry. And Poirier, he's recovering from an injury, so he takes a step back. You got Alvarez sitting there still kind of licking his wounds and stuff. But, at the end of the day, those guys probably got to settle things and fight each other first. You can keep McGregor, Ferguson, and Nurmagomedov kind of floating above the others.
Yeah. Yeah, so, there's a whole bunch of stuff we need to talk about yet on this, but we'll do it another podcast because we're simply out of time. Coming up on another Cage Rage podcast, some things that we're going to be talking about fans can look forward to. We're going to be talking about the historicity of the upcoming 25th anniversary of the UFC because we're quickly approaching that November 11th. 25 anniversary. Is that right? November 11th?
It's November 12th.
November 12th, the 25th anniversary. So we're going to be covering that in our next podcast. It's coming up real soon. We've got a boxing podcast coming up real soon to talk about current events. And we're also covering the historicity of boxing, where we're going to talk about some really deep boxing stuff, including some stuff that President Donald Trump has to do with the history of boxing. That's going to blow your minds. Some really interesting stuff coming up. Hey, don't forget to subscribe to the Cage Rage podcast. Sign up below. Tell us what you like, what you don't like, what you love and what you hate. And quit talking about my hair. I know it's beautiful. You don't have to tell me. You're just jealous. Anything you have to say before we leave, Miguel?
No, had fun as always, Chad, and we'll see how it plays out here. But again, I predict that's the X factor, and that the UFC's got to do the right thing and explain to Nurmagomedov, play shepherd, so to speak, because I think he's not going to understand the bureaucracy of the Boxing Commission. I think he's morally right, and the Boxing Commission is in a corner that they have to act. So he's going to eat his suspension, and how do you overcome that? That's the UFC's conundrum now. Yeah.
Hey, thanks for watching. We will catch you again. Again, don't forget to subscribe. Sign up below, thecageragepodcast.com. Catch us on Cage Rage Podcast on Facebook, the Cage Rage Podcast on YouTube, and we are working on launching on Twitch, and Raising Cane Productions is putting us up all over the podcast world. I don't know anything about any of that crap. I let other people do that stuff. They're smarter than me. Thanks a lot. We'll see you again. Namaste. So,